John and Kimberly. More than 10 years ago, they started Africa Windmill Project. Check out this windmill John made in his backyard. I bet you're wondering what they do.
Africa Windmill Project teaches farmers in Malawi how to be food secure at the village level by irrigating crops year-round.
And this is Kristen. In January 2020, she founded Odom Collective, an organization that focuses on strengthening families.
Our priority is that every child ends up in a safe, nurturing family where they have the greatest opportunity to thrive.
Both of these organizations were started by ordinary people who saw a need and felt God nudging them to do something about it.
I had a conversation with a 16-year-old girl. Her family lived in a village about 45 minutes away, but she grew up in a children's home. And she looked at me and she said, "Being apart is hard. I miss my family." And I sat there and I was just like, I don't understand. If her whole family is alive, why is she here growing up in a children's home?
Meanwhile, for John and Kimberly, they were encountering the heartbreaking circumstances of Malawian farmers.
They have rainy season, which lasts about 4 months, and then they have a dry season that lasts the rest of the year, and towards the end of that dry season, they call it the hunger season because by then they've ran out of food from the rainy season.
And that's kind of the story for the whole country, is you have about 14 million people in the country. 11 million of those people are smallholder farmers, and most of them only grow food when it's raining.
Both organizations did a lot of research. Kristen even remarked that the world doesn't need more nonprofits, it needs better ones.
Nonprofits.
So their research was focused on finding actual, tangible ways to make an impact.
So I'd stay up at night, kind of stressed out about what I saw and how something should be done. So I started going back in history on the windmill and started trying to figure out how we could build windmills out of materials commonly found there in their villages.
While John was learning how to help farmers irrigate their farms in Malawi, Kristen was learning a lot about orphan children in Uganda.
I started doing research and I started diving into things. And I found out that in Uganda, 98% of the children who are in orphanages have a living family member. And so what that means is that the orphans who are in orphanages aren't actually orphans at all. Poverty is actually the main driver of children ending up in institutional care.
After all that research, after all the planning, after gathering up all their resources, it was time to put feet on the ground.
Globally, we focus on combating family separation in Uganda. So how do we prevent kids from ending up in orphanages? So currently, we work with orphanages in Uganda and help them transition their models of care from an institutional care model to family-based care. So working to get kids out of the orphanage and back into families. We also have hopes to start family strengthening initiatives. So how do we combat family separation on the front end? So how do we prevent kids from ending up in orphanages in the first place?
And in Malawi, African Windmill Project trains farmers on how to irrigate.
So it's critical that it's ran by local people. We have 2 major teams and they go out each day and do agriculture training and install windmills and teach farmers how to use them and maintain them.
And it's not super complicated. They just needed to know how to get the water to their crops so they could grow food. And John happened to know a way to do that, and he did it.
The thing is, although Africa Windmill Project has been doing this for over 10 years, the work is still important today. There are still more districts and villages and farmers who don't know how to irrigate yet.
So you have people in these rural villages, someone would have to go look for a job. Well, they're not jobs. So that's when you have these rural villages fail. And when the villages fail, everyone ends up losing their land and they move to town, and that's where the poverty cycle begins. So what happens when you go into a village and you form an agriculture club and people figure out how to sustain themselves with their land and their assets is it stops that poverty cycle from even ever beginning. So for like a farmer to become food secure, for him to have all the tools, including his water pump, his starter pack at the beginning, all of his trainings, walked through for 3 years. The whole cost for that for a family is $200. And then that family is food secure, and their kids know how to irrigate and grow food year round. And there's not much we can do here for $200 that's as amazing as, making sure that a family is able to be food secure.
And Kristen noted how the last couple of years have made a significant impact on the number of orphan children.
COVID-19 has created an urgent orphanhood crisis. And because poverty is the main driver of institutionalization, it's so important that, we come alongside and support family-based care efforts.
You know what? God used these ordinary people to start something, right? But God doesn't have to stop there. God can call us into this amazing work. We can be part of making a difference.
Like, they've already identified 3,000 families that are smallholder farmers that need to know how to irrigate crops and how to grow food year round. So for those 3,000 families, like, the fact that Summit, thought to do this is definitely an answer to prayer, because a year from now, those families are going to be growing food year round, which is such a game changer.
So the Christmas Eve offering will allow us to continue to work with the orphanage that we are currently helping. It will also enable us to come alongside one additional orphanage so that we can help them transition their model of care. And then it will also allow us to launch our first family strengthening initiative. So that is something that we have wanted to do since the beginning of OTEM Collective, but we just haven't had the funding to actually be able to do it.
The work these organizations do is so necessary, so inspiring, and their work points us to God's compassionate heart for the world. God is for each and every one of us, and He calls us to join Him.